Chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today, I have a pure and intense chess game to share with you, played between Dragon Chess and me. Dragon Chess is the top chess AI, a formidable opponent, and also the oldest chess engine. Dragon holds a 4000 ELO rating in its development, and this game is quite remarkable and pure, so let's get started without wasting any time. I started the game with d4, and we have d6. Dragon wants to play the modern variation, which is flexible and good to implement. After a few moves, we have c4, creating two central pawns where knight c3 and e4 can come onto the board. As usual, from black's perspective, he will play g6, and sometimes c6 appears, followed by e5 and knight c6, knight d2, which is flexible, can also be played, like a lotus flowering in a lake. That's the beauty of chess. A few moves later, we have bishop to f5 on the board. Dragon played that move to dominate the light squares and protect the e4 square, which is why I played e3. I wanted to exchange the light squared bishop, because I didn't want to be bothered by it. After a few more moves, we exchanged the light squared bishops with bishop to d3. You can see that I can push my pawn to e4 or e5. Even d5 can come, and many chess players might consider playing h4, h5 to attack the kingside, but it is not possible now because the light squared bishop is gone. It's like trying to dive in a hill without a proper vehicle. You might get stuck in the mud or gutter here. Dragon replied with c6, protecting these squares and opening up the queen's diagonal. Knight to d7 can come onto the board, followed by e5, which is why I played e4. We have a6 and queenside castling here. And queen to e2 comes onto the board with the idea of playing e5. Many inexperienced human chess players might consider playing knight d7, but I can strike by playing e5. After the exchange, your knight is under attack and cannot go to h5 due to the g4 move. The knight will be trapped there. When the knight retreats to e8, you can play a cunning move like Bobby Fischer's style, pawn to e6, attacking both the knight and the pawn. After you capture, queen takes e6 check will follow, and knight to g5 will apply significant pressure on your king and queen. The position is as restless as someone who has recently gone through a breakup and becomes distressed, indulging in unhealthy habits. Remember, your life has a higher meaning. Don't be distressed in such situations. Knight e5 may come to protect that square, but I can move back my queen to h3 to attack the pawn. When the pawn moves to h6, I can play knight e6, forking the queen and rook on the board, like attacking two enemies in a war with two guns. That's a thrilling scenario, much like this chess position. Returning to the position, knight to d7 is a very bad choice, which is why Dragon replied with knight f to d7. Preparing for e5 and also opening up the dark squared bishop, we have bishop e3 on the board, and here, playing e5 would be a good move but not the best. Dragon initiated his plan by playing rook e8. Still, you cannot play e5 because knight a4, followed by knight b6, can come onto the board. Since you play a6 a while ago, the knight will gain a powerful outpost, like an army officer promoted to a general leading the army. The Russian army is one of the most powerful in the world, and my chess pieces will be akin to that. Let me illustrate what will happen if you play e5. A supernova explosion will occur in e5, and consequently, the d-file will open for the rook. I will play c5, and after you play queen c7, knight to a4 will come onto the board, gaining the b6 outpost to attack the rook. This position is marvelous for me because your knight on b8 is stuck and unable to move. Your pieces are stuck like horses in their stables, unable to go to war. I will gain significant advantages, which is why, going back to the position. Noticing that e5 is not possible, Dragon replayed with knight to f8. He is maneuvering his knight before playing e5 and then switching his knight to e6. We have knight to g5, declaring a strong stance in black's position. Now you have to think a little about the e5 move, whether to play it or not. What would you consider in this position as black? e5 might be considered by many chess players as a desirable move, but after you capture, the pawn cannot be captured by the d6 pawn because it is pinned. After the bishop captures, c5 will come, attacking the d6 pawn with two pieces. If the queen moves, then f4 will attack both the bishop and the pawn on d6. I will get a passed pawn on d6, which is marvelous, getting a passed pawn in the middle game. Even if Magnus Carlsen played as black here, Levi Rosman with white pieces could defeat him. That's a humorous thought. So let me provide you an inspiration quote in Sudden. An apple a day keeps anyone away if you throw it hard enough. Returning to the position, we analyze that e5 is a very vulnerable move, which is why Dragon replayed with h6, declaring to the knight that you are not a citizen to my country, you have to die to escape. The knight cannot escape through f3 because this will block the queen's diagonal, the queen will be blocked, which is why I moved my knight back to h3, keeping the diagonal open for my queen. Now you've played h6, creating a weakness that can be attacked by my queen and bishop maneuver. The knight comes. And the queen goes to d2 to pressure the pawn. Some chess players, those with a more primitive or cautious mindset, might consider playing h5, however, this is a completely vulnerable move because I can respond with f4, dominating the center with my 4 central pawns. Then, knight to g5 can come onto the board, pressuring your kingside. Even rook to h3 followed by g3 can come, which is just delightful and amazing, like eating a sweet potato pizza for breakfast. So, going back to the position, Dragon chess is my breakfast. I will eat him after I defeat him, not literally, but in a psychological manner. We have king to h7, and guess what I played? I played the f4 move that I discussed earlier, creating a strong pawn center. It's like building the biggest army in front of enemy countries, becoming the most powerful nation in the world. Now rook f3 can come onto the board to attack the kingside, and the queen's diagonal can be opened anytime. Knight to g5 is a crucial idea to implement. I can even play knight e2 followed by knight f4 if the opportunity arises. Dragon becomes very angry with me and says, I am not food, I am a bomb. If you dare to think of eating me, I will explode, and you will face the consequences. Let me go with b5, breaking your ego. Well, Dragon chess, you cannot break my ego because it is higher than your existence. You are under my foot. Let me go with f5. This position has significant disadvantages for you. For instance, if black plays a normal move like rook to b8, I can capture the pawn and get my rook positioned at f7, threatening the king. As the rook moves to f8, I will capture the bishop, and bishop takes h6 will follow, forcing the king to move, and I will capture the pawn on b5, noticing the rook is under attack. Some inexperienced chess players, 69 IQ man, might consider rook to g8, however, this is also a vulnerable move because I can punish black by playing knight to g5, threatening the king. If the king moves or captures the bishop, knight to f7 will fork the king and queen, ending the 7 years of love story between the king and queen. Very sad. Going back to the position, we discovered that playing rook to b8 is a very bad choice. Even though playing before looks reasonable, it is also a bad move because after knight e2 and a5, I can maneuver my rook to f3, and another rook can come to f1. In a few moves, I will have double rooks on the f-file. The knight comes, and the queen moves back to e1. Look at my position, the queen is ready to attack through h4, knight to g5 can arrive, and the bishop is attacking. Even if you capture the pawn on e4, it creates a vulnerable situation for you because I can capture the pawn on h6. If you capture my bishop, queen to h4 will follow, trapping you in a bad situation, like a machine trapping every soldier around you. Now you have to decide whether to surrender or fight. Noticing that f takes g6 can come, rook takes f7 can come, and this position will be just vulnerable. No matter what you do, the game will be completely lost for you. So, going back to the position, we analyzed that playing b4 and rook to b8 are complete wastes of moves. It's like your whole preparation becomes wasted after you die in GTA 5, with no advancements or save game options. Quite idiotic. We have knight to f6, trying to protect these squares. Dragon chess is doing its best to protect its kingside with 2 knights, but I just played queen to e2, preparing for an e5 move, which is as delicious as eating a pancake. Let me illustrate this variation so you can understand. After all, you are just a human, and humans never understand chess. No matter how many examples or training they receive, even grandmasters make idiotic and nonsensical moves. If rook to b8 is played, I can go with e5, after the exchanges, the knight and queen will be under attack, so, the best move for many chess players might be knight to g8 to protect their territory, but you know what? I can push my soldiers into your position by playing e6, attacking the vulnerable pawns. After you capture, I will recapture the g6 pawn. After knight takes g6, queen to h5 will arrive on the board. Now you can see that knight to g5 attacking the king will be a deadly move. Knight f6 might be considered, but after knight g5 and the knight capture, queen to f7 and queen to h7 is the biggest threat to your life. You have to capture the knight, and after the capture, this position is just fragile for you. You cannot protect your position at all. Even though it looks like the king might be saved, the rook can come at any time to join the attack. Let me further clarify the position. Rook to f8 followed by bishop to h6 will attack this bishop. You have to consider rook to f7, knight to e4 will attack the knight, which cannot move because your rook is hanging. After the capture, knight to g5 will attack the rook. Your position is just wasted. You cannot protect it at all. The game will be over. Like if the tree's root gets cut, the whole tree will die. It's akin to that. If the root of your king's safety is lost, then all your pieces and your position will be dead lost. Returning to the position, we discover that any rook move, such as before or capturing the pawn, or playing e5, are idiotic and nonsensical. Dragon responded with queen c7, trying to protect the rank while creating indirect pressure along the diagonal. After the queen moves and the pawn is captured, we have g4, go, my pawn. Show your real power against the enemies. You are the champ, the boss, the greatest ever. Dragon responded with g5, blocking my bishop. Pause the video if you want to figure out the best move. I played knight takes g5, what a brilliant and cunning knight sacrifice. You can't retreat your king because I will move back my knight and push my pawn on g5. You have to capture my knight because if you capture a piece or not, it's under my control. After that, some might consider playing queen to h3 to attack the king, but it's not the right move. After bishop takes g5 and the knight moves back to h7, the knights protect each other. f6 can come, safeguarding the black king, and I will lose all attacking advantages. Therefore, playing queen h3 is a bad move, which is why we have h4. The h-file needs to be opened, and playing queen h3 with rook maneuvers to activate the rooks in this h-file is a superlative move. Dragon captured the pawn, and g5 came on the board. Where should the knight move? Many players, like donkey-rated players, might consider knight to g8 because they can't think 1 or 2 steps ahead. Remember, in chess, you have to think up to 3 moves ahead. What will happen after you play a move? What will your opponent play? Then what will you respond with? The more you analyze and recall the moves, the clearer the best move becomes. That's the secret strategy of grandmasters. Alright, we have queen to h5 check, your knight blocks on h6, and consequently, queen takes f7 leads to check, knight to e2 followed by knight f4 and knight to g6 will put the black king in a very precarious position. Even if you capture the knight, I will recapture with my pawn, creating 2 connected passed pawns on the kingside. This is as fragile as skydiving and discovering your parachute is broken, a very bad experience. Going back to the position, we discover that moving the knight back is a bad choice, but the knight is under attack. What should black do now? Dragon ignored the knight and played king to h8, giving up the material, but I'm not interested in your knight, it's only a $2 piece. I want your king, which is worth $100. Let me go with king h1 and play rook g1 to get access to the file. As the knight moves back, we have queen to h5, the knight cannot escape due to this overwhelming pawn structure. g6 can come to attack the knight, which is why the king slides. The pawn capture occurred, and in a few moves, we have rook to f2 to protect the pawn. Consequently, rook to h2 can come on the board, another rook can come on g1, which is advantageous for me. We have queen d7, rook to g1, and this position is completely fragile for you. You have to consider the best move. Any normal move will lose the game immediately. For example, Even 2500 ELO rated players might consider playing c5, which is vulnerable because I can respond with g6, attacking your knight. As the knight moves, pawn captures and king captures on f7 will follow. Consequently, rook takes g7 followed by bishop to h6 check will arrive. As the king moves, queen to g5 will arrive with the idea of playing queen g7, leading to checkmate. The game will be over for you. So let me tell you a beautiful quote about life for you. The sun is a daily reminder that we too can rise again from the darkness, that we too can shine our own light. So, going back to the position, we discovered that playing c5 is a bad choice. Another category of players might consider rook c8, but it is also vulnerable because after g6, the same implications follow, pawn captures and king captures on f7, even though it looks like the king can escape, it is a superstition. I can respond with e5, attacking the knight. On the next move, e6 can come, forking the king and queen with a pawn, a hilarious thing in chess. Going back to the position, we discovered that playing rook c8 or c5 is a bad choice. Dragon wasn't afraid to sacrifice his knight on g6, he played that move and sacrificed the knight, but if I capture the knight, the g file will be blocked for my rook, even though the f file is open, it's useless, and I will lose attacking chances, like a grasshopper losing its blades to attack an insect. In our actual game, I didn't capture the knight, I played queen to h5, indirectly attacking the f7 pawn. We have rook d8 followed by rook g3, a few moves later, rook to b7 tries to protect the 7th rank. If you capture the g6 pawn, I can implement a cunning strategy. For instance, if you capture the pawn on g6, I will play queen f7 check, leading to the king on h8, then rook to h2 will exert significant pressure on your kingside, and the game will be completely over for you. There's no way to stop the loss. So, going back to the position, we discover that capturing the pawn isn't feasible, which is why Dragon Chess responded with e6, protecting the pawn with his queen. After the capture and recapture, we have queen moving to g2, using the g file and attacking on the f file. We have queen h5 check, and a few moves later, c5 and e5 directly attack the rook on b7. Here, many inexperienced chess players, even top players like Hikaru Nakamura or Ian Nepomniachtchi, might consider playing rook to e7. They are just a moon, but I am the sun, just a matter of size, I am bigger than them. Now it's a vulnerable move because I can go with knight e4, aiming for f6 check, and the king will be lost due to the queen and king fork. If the queen moves back to g6, knight to f6 check will occur. The bishop cannot capture the knight because the g file will be open. If the king moves to f7, I will just slide my knight back. If the king moves to e8, knight takes d6 check forces the king to move, followed by queen to b7, leading to checkmate. It's like winning a gold medal in the Olympics after just 4 years of practice, without hard work, because all the opponents are lazy and weak, like this black king and his pieces. In our actual game, noticing that the rook is under attack and you cannot protect the rook at all due to knight e4 followed by knight f6, Dragon just captured the d4 pawn, giving me the opportunity to capture his rook. My bishop is gone, and he gets a passed pawn 2 steps away from promotion, but the pawn won't be promoted because it's in my territory. I'll make it jobless and end its life by making rook to f6. Sacrificing the rook again. You cannot capture my rook because the file will open with the opening rank. After the pawn is captured, we have g6. I want to play queen to f7, and that game will be over for you. Here, some frustrated and emotional chess players, rather than developing and playing logically, might consider bishop takes f6, which is a bad choice. I can go with queen to f7 check, forcing the king to move. After g7, it will be a dead loss for you because I can promote my pawn into a new queen. 2 queens in chess are like marrying 2 opposite gender in real life, not in reality, but as a chess analogy. Going back to the position, we discover that you cannot capture the rook. After e4, the rook moves back, the knight moves, and a few moves later, we have a capture, knight to a4, rook captures on e3, after a few more moves, we have knight to d5, you cannot capture the knight because your bishop is hanging, but dragon chess just captured the knight. We have rook capturing the bishop, c3, and in a few moves, I want to play rook f7, after the knight is captured, rook takes e8 will come, and the queen from the h-file will checkmate you. That's why dragon chess played queen d7, forcing me to capture. After the recapture, I captured the queen, and then the knight, with 2 rooks. I was completely winning, and I checkmated him. So, it was a very pure and insane chess game. I hope you enjoyed the game very much. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments. I hope you liked the video, wishing you all the best. Bye bye.